In St. John's, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador has delayed today's planned provincial budget after a chaotic protest blocked access to the legislature, raising safety concerns. The protest over fishery regulations lasted for several hours. Dozens of crab fishermen squared off with police on horseback and other officers. At least one injury has been reported. The province has since won a court injunction preventing any further demonstrations, cutting off access to the seat of government. And last hour, the Premier stressed the budget delay will be minimal.
It is our intention to proceed with the budget when it is safe. The first available time, hopefully, for the benefit of all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, that is tomorrow.
The CBC's Peter Cowan has been watching this story develop. He joins us live from outside the legislature in St. John's. So, Peter, let's start with that media briefing by the Premier and two other ministers last hour, and also any update that you may have over the injury that I just spoke about. What more did they have to say?
Yeah, well, and I think the first thing we should talk about is how different the scene is right now outside the legislature here than it was just a couple hours ago. The protesters have all packed up. They've gone home, at least for the day. We'll have to see what happens there. But, you know, we heard from the Premier the frustration over the fact that the budget was supposed to happen today, but because fishermen were blocking all of the entrances here at Confederation Building, no one was able to get into the building. That has since changed. We're here in the parking lot, and various civil servants are kind of pulling up. Some folks are getting back into their offices now towards the end of the day, but the plan is to hopefully do that budget tomorrow. It was clear, though, what we heard from the Premier was a certain amount of frustration. He says they are trying to address the concerns that fishermen have raised. They've made some changes, but he says the violence that they saw today was unacceptable.
They have entirely the democratic right to peaceful protest, and that is something that we encourage, and as leaders we should all encourage in the democratic process. What is unacceptable is violent protests. And so some of the behaviors we saw today will not be tolerated by me or our government.
What we saw today was actually two different injuries. There was a police officer who was injured, but also one of the fishermen that was protesting was injured as well when police tried to force their way through the crowd in order to let those civil servants into the building. Organizers with the protest say that the fisherman who was injured has a broken hip after a confrontation between those police and especially the two police on horseback that were trying to push their way through the crowds.
And so, Peter, can you remind us of what the fishermen are fighting for?
What we're seeing here is a lot of frustration over the limits that are placed on fishermen. And, you know, some of the things that they want to see changed are, for example, outside buyers. So right now you have to sell your catch to a plant in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now the province has said, hey, we're willing to open that up for this season. For the crab fishery, which is coming up soon, we'll allow outside buyers. Another concern is the cap on the number of processing plants that are in place. And the province has said, hey, we'll address that by, you know, if the catch is going up, we'll find a way to increase the number of plants. Because what the concern we're hearing here is fishermen feel that they don't have a lot of flexibility. The phrase we've been hearing throughout this protest has been free enterprise, has kind of been the rallying cry here, because they feel that they're not free to be able to sell their catch to whoever they want, that more competition would lead to a better price, and they feel they're kind of just stuck taking whatever the price is from the processors, feeling like they're not getting the full benefit of the value of this product. Instead, it's the processors, and especially because there has been consolidation within the industry. So there are fewer players, and they feel that that means that there's less competition and therefore less benefit for them. Here's what some of the fishermen told us today.
We're fighting for our freedom, harvesters for harvesters. Enough of the plants controlling us, and the government not doing one goddamn thing about it. Sorry about that, but yeah. I mean, it's pretty frustrating.
So you travel a long way, so why?
I drove 5 hours for to come in here.
Right, so what
People have drove further than that. Like, enough's enough. Like, it's time for you to make a stand.
We're going to stay until this Premier and this Minister of Fisheries does what is necessary to get us back on the water with a free market to sell our products. And if it's like I said, if I'm going to leave mine in the water. If I got only one buyer to sell my product to, it will stay in the water.
The big question is what's going to happen next. The Premier wants to push forward with a budget tomorrow. The fishermen have said they're going to continue to block that. But now, as you said, Andrew, there's an injunction in place which would make it illegal to block access to this building. So the question is what exactly that scene will look like tomorrow morning and just how many fishermen continue to try and disrupt this from happening.
Because, Peter, the question, and I heard the Premier say this, he said, well, we have that injunction that he doesn't want to see 500 people. No one wants to see 500 people arrested tomorrow, but is that the kind of situation that we could be in if fishermen choose to block the building again?
It'll be in the hands of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary about exactly how they want to enforce this injunction, because they now have this tool that they didn't have this morning, which means they could decide to arrest people. At the same time, it's sort of at their discretion based on things like safety. With the sort of scene we saw this morning, 2 injuries. So basically, it's going to be, will the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary be able to keep it safe for people to be able to enter the building tomorrow morning? If the answer is yes, that budget will go ahead. If the answer continues to be no and we see clashes and standoffs, then, there is still the possibility that the budget won't happen tomorrow.
And Peter, just before I let you go, any sense of whether the fishermen, I know they were saying, we could be coming back. Do you have a sense of that? Are they planning on coming back tomorrow?
They're saying yes, that they plan to continue the disruption. The question is, will they be that willing in those sorts of numbers to risk things like arrests, fine, even possible jail time in order to make that point? Or did they feel that by disrupting it for a day that they got the sort of attention from the political figures that they were looking for? So, they say yes, they plan to continue tomorrow, but we'll have to show up tomorrow morning and see whether or not they do show up again, and whether or not it's just sort of a respectful protest and then allow people to enter the building, or whether they continue to try and blockade people from getting in.
Peter, appreciate your reporting. Thank you. The CBC's Peter Cowan live in St. John's.